My 72-year-old father was dying of mysterious symptoms that doctors couldn't explain, till I discovered his devoted wife had been putting arsenic in his daily health smoothies. Monica thought she could slowly poison him for his $4 million estate, but she had no idea I was about to expose her as a serial killer. My name is Thomas, and I want to tell you how I discovered that my stepmother had been slowly poisoning my elderly father while forging documents to steal his $4 million estate, and how I orchestrated her downfall that resulted in her spending the rest of her life in prison. It all started on a rainy Tuesday in October, when I received a phone call that would change everything. My father, Robert Harrison, successful real estate developer who had built a small empire of commercial properties in Dallas, had been rushed to the hospital with what appeared to be another episode of his declining health. Dad was 72, and over the past 18 months, he had been experiencing a series of mysterious symptoms: severe fatigue, confusion, digestive problems, and what his doctors had diagnosed as early-onset dementia. It was heartbreaking to watch. This once sharp businessman become increasingly frail and disoriented. The call came from Monica, my 45-year-old stepmother who had married my father 5 years earlier, 2 years after my mother passed away from cancer. "Thomas, you need to come to the hospital right away. Your father had another episode, and this time it's serious." I drove the 3 hours from my home in Austin to Dallas, my mind racing with worry. Dad had been declining rapidly, and I had been growing increasingly concerned about his care. Monica had insisted on handling everything herself, claiming that too many visitors would stress him out. When I arrived at the hospital, found Dad unconscious in the ICU, hooked up to various machines and monitors. He looked incredibly frail, much worse than when I had seen him just 3 weeks earlier. Monica was sitting beside his bed, playing the part of the devoted wife perfectly. She was dressed in elegant but somber clothes, with just the right amount of makeup to look like she had been crying, but was trying to stay strong. "Oh, Thomas, I'm so glad you're here," she said, embracing me with what seemed like genuine emotion. "The doctors aren't sure if he's going to make it this time. What happened?" "Found him collapsed in his study this morning. He had been having stomach problems all weekend, and then he just fell over. The doctors think it might be his liver failing." Over the next 48 hours, I maintained a bedside vigil with Monica, watching Dad drift in and out of consciousness. When he was awake, he seemed confused and disoriented, barely recognizing me. The doctors ran test after test, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what was causing his rapid decline. On the second day, something struck me as odd. I was reviewing Dad's medical records with one of his doctors when I noticed that all of his recent hospitalizations had occurred when I was out of town or unavailable to visit immediately. "Dr. Martinez, has my father been hospitalized often recently?" "This is his 4th admission in 6 months. Each time with similar symptoms: digestive, distress, confusion, and general weakness." "And his wife brings him in each time?" "Yes, Mrs. Harrison has been very attentive. She's always the one who calls the ambulance and rides with him to the hospital." That evening, as Monica stepped out to get coffee, I had a few minutes alone. With Dad, he was more alert than he had been since I arrived, and I seized the opportunity to ask him some questions. "Dad, how are you feeling, Thomas? Is that you, son?" "Yes, Dad, I'm here. I don't understand what's happening to me. I feel sick all the time now. Monica says it's just old age, but what, Dad? I used to be so sharp, so focused. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. In my stomach, ... It hurts constantly." "When did this all start?" He was quiet for a long moment, as if trying to access memories through a fog. "It started ... maybe a year ago. Monica began making me these special health drinks, said they would help with my energy levels." A chill ran down my spine. "Special health drinks?" "Every morning. Green smoothies with vitamins and supplements. She's very health conscious, you know. Always trying to take care of me." Before I could ask more questions, Monica returned with her coffee, cutting off our conversation that night. I couldn't sleep. Something about Dad's condition and the timing of his decline was bothering me. I decided to do some research on my own. The next morning, while Monica was meeting with the doctors, I called my friend, Dr. James Wilson. physician I had known since college who specialized in internal medicine. "James, I need your opinion on something. My father has been experiencing a pattern of symptoms over the past year: digestive problems, confusion, fatigue, and now possible liver issues. All of this started around the same time he began taking daily health supplements." "What kind of supplements?" "Not sure exactly, but his wife has been making him green smoothies with various vitamins and herbal additives." There was a long pause. "Thomas, those symptoms could indicate heavy metal poisoning or exposure to certain toxins. Has your father had his blood tested for unusual substances?" "I don't think so. The doctors have been treating it as general aging and possible dementia. You need to request specific toxicology testing. If someone is slowly poisoning him, standard medical tests might not detect it unless they're looking for specific substances." Word poisoning hit me like a physical blow. The idea that Monica might be deliberately harming Dad seemed impossible. But the pattern James described matched Dad's symptoms perfectly. I immediately requested a meeting with Dr. Martinez to discuss additional testing. "I'd like to request comprehensive toxicology screening for my father," I told him. "That's unusual. Is there a specific reason you suspect poisoning?" "The timing and progression of his symptoms are concerning to me. I'd like to rule out environmental toxins or contamination." Dr. Martinez agreed to run the tests, though he seemed skeptical about the need for them. While we waited for the results, I decided to do some investigating on my own. That evening, I drove to Dad's house, the house where I had grown up, which Monica now essentially controlled. Using my key, I let myself in and went directly to Dad's study, where he spent most of his time during the day. On his desk, I found several empty bottles of supplements and herbal remedies, all purchased by Monica. I took photos of all the labels and then searched the kitchen, where I found Monica's collection of health and wellness products. There were dozens of bottles and containers, many containing substances I had never heard of, in the refrigerator. I found the blender she used to make Dad's daily smoothies, along with containers of various powdered supplements. I carefully collected samples of several substances, putting them in small containers to have them analyzed. But the most disturbing discovery was in Monica's home office. Hidden in a filing cabinet that I had to pick the lock to access, I found documents that made my blood run cold. There were multiple versions of Dad's will, showing a progression of changes over the past 2 years. The original will, dated 3 years ago, left the majority of Dad's estate to me, with a modest inheritance for Monica. But there were newer versions, each one increasing Monica's share while decreasing mine. The most recent version, dated just 6 months ago, left virtually everything to Monica. The house, the commercial properties, the investment accounts, everything. Worth approximately $4 million. All of these newer wills bore Dad's signature. But something about the handwriting looked off to me. I had seen Dad's signature thousands of times, and these looked slightly different, similar enough to fool a casual observer, but not quite right to someone who knew his handwriting well. I photographed all the documents and took them to a handwriting expert named Patricia Reynolds, a forensic document examiner who had testified in court cases involving forged documents. "These signatures show clear signs of forgery," Patricia told me after analyzing the documents. "The pressure patterns, letter formation, and pen movement are all inconsistent with the earlier, authentic signatures. Someone has been practicing your father's signature and getting progressively better at copying it. How can you be sure? Look at these comparison charts. The authentic signatures show natural variation in pressure and speed, the way someone naturally signs their name thousands of times over years. These newer signatures are too consistent, too careful. They're the work of someone copying rather than someone signing naturally." Armed with this evidence, I hired private investigator Marcus Webb to conduct a comprehensive investigation into Monica's background and activities. What Marcus discovered was even more disturbing than I had imagined. Monica's real name was Angela Rodriguez, and she had a criminal history that she had hidden from my father. She had been married 3 times before. 2 of her previous husbands had died under suspicious circumstances after changing their wills to benefit her. Her first husband, a wealthy contractor in Phoenix, had died of apparent heart failure. At age 68, her second husband, a retired oil executive in Houston, had died of natural causes at age 71. Both men had been healthy before marrying Monica, and both had experienced similar symptoms to what Dad was now experiencing: declining health, confusion, and digestive problems. In both cases, Monica had inherited substantial sums of money after the deaths, despite relatively short marriages. But Marcus's most damning discovery was Monica's recent purchase history. Using her credit card records, which he obtained through legal channels as part of the investigation, Marcus found that Monica had been purchasing large quantities of arsenic-based pesticides and heavy metal compounds over the past year, all ordered online and delivered to a PO box she had rented under a false name. The toxicology results came back 3 days later, and they confirmed my worst fears. Dad's blood showed dangerously high levels of arsenic and other heavy metals, levels that indicated chronic poisoning over an extended period. The concentrations were high enough to cause all of his symptoms and would eventually be fatal if not treated immediately. Dr. Martinez was stunned by the results. "Mr. Harrison, your father is being poisoned. These levels don't occur naturally. Someone has been deliberately administering these substances to him." I immediately contacted the Dallas Police Department and requested that Detective Sarah Williams, specialized in cases involving elder abuse and attempted murder, take over the investigation. Detective Williams moved quickly. Within 24 hours, she had obtained search warrants for Dad's house and Monica's personal belongings. The search revealed a cache of poisons hidden in Monica's bedroom, along with detailed notes about Dad's daily routines and the timing of his symptoms. Monica had been keeping a journal documenting the effects of different dosages, adjusting her approach based on how Dad responded. But the most incriminating evidence was a letter Monica had written to her sister, bragging about her plan. "Robert is finally starting to deteriorate enough that I can move to the final phase. The arsenic in his morning smoothies has been working perfectly, just enough to make him sick and confused, but not enough to kill him quickly. I need him alive long enough to sign the final will revision. Then I can increase the dosage and finish this. $4 million will be worth all this effort, and stupid Thomas has no idea what's happening to his precious daddy." Monica, the letter went on to detail how Monica had been forging Dad's signature on legal documents and planned to have him declared mentally incompetent so she could control his entire estate while slowly killing him. Monica was arrested at the hospital while she was visiting Dad, probably planning to administer another dose of poison. She tried to maintain her innocent act, but the evidence was overwhelming. "Thomas, you have to believe me," she pleaded as the police handcuffed her. "I love your father. I would never hurt him. You've been poisoning him for over a year, Monica. Or should I call you Angela? We know about your previous husbands and your real identity." The color drained from her face as she realized how thoroughly her deception had been uncovered. The trial was swift and decisive. Monica was charged with attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The evidence was so overwhelming that her attorney advised her to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But the most satisfying part wasn't Monica's conviction, it was Dad's recovery. Once the arsenic was eliminated from his system and he began proper treatment, Dad's health improved dramatically. The confusion and memory problems that we had attributed to dementia turned out to be symptoms of chronic poisoning. Within 3 months, he was back to his old, sharp, focused self. "I can't believe I was so blind," Dad said to me one evening as we sat in his study. The same room where Monica had been slowly killing him. She seemed so loving, so devoted. She was a professional, Dad. She had done this before, and she was very good at playing the part. "How did you figure it out?" "It was the pattern of your illnesses and the timing of when they got worse. Something didn't feel right about it." Dad gripped my hand tightly. "You saved my life, son. If you hadn't investigated when you did, she would have succeeded." 6 months after Monica's conviction, Dad decided to sell his house to many bad memories and moved into a luxury senior community where he could be around people his own age and have access to medical care if needed. He also completely rewrote his will, leaving everything to me with specific provisions that no future spouse could ever inherit his estate. He had learned his lesson about trusting too quickly. A year later, Dad met Eleanor, a 70-year-old widow, whose husband had died of cancer 5 years earlier. Eleanor was genuine, warm, and had her own substantial assets. She wasn't looking for financial security from Dad, just companionship. The contrast between Eleanor and Monica was striking. Eleanor encouraged Dad to maintain his relationships with his existing family and friends, while Monica had systematically tried to isolate him. Eleanor was transparent about her past, while Monica had built her entire identity on lies. Dad and Eleanor got married 2 years later in a small ceremony with just close family present. This time, I wasn't worried about his choice. Eleanor had been thoroughly vetted, and her motivations were clearly genuine. The most perfect moment came 3 years after Monica's conviction, when I received a letter from her in prison. She was apparently hoping I would advocate for her release or help her with an appeal. Thomas, I know you think I'm a terrible person, but I really did love your father. I just got confused and made some bad choices. I found God in prison, and I'm a different person now. Can you please talk to Robert about forgiving me? Monica, I wrote back a single sentence. You tried to murder my father for money. Enjoy the rest of your life in prison. Today, as I watched Dad and Eleanor work in their garden together, both of them healthy and happy in their early 70s, I sometimes think about how close I came to losing him to Monica's greed. I am grateful that I trusted my instincts when something seemed wrong. That decision to investigate Dad's mysterious illness saved his life and exposed a serial killer who might have continued her pattern with other victims. Monica thought she was clever, using charm and manipulation to slowly murder wealthy men while stealing their money. She believed she had found the perfect mark in my father, a lonely widower with substantial assets and a trusting nature. Instead, her greed led to her spending the rest of her life in a prison cell while Dad got to enjoy his golden years with someone who actually loved him. The woman who thought she could poison my father and steal his fortune ended up losing her freedom forever, and I couldn't be more satisfied with that outcome. Sometimes the most evil betrayal leads to the most complete justice. Monica's attempt to murder Dad for money didn't just fail, it ensured she would never be able to hurt anyone again.